Hello, I'm Kirsty Young, and this is a podcast from the Desert Island Discs archive. For rights reasons, we've had to shorten the music. The programme was originally broadcast in 1982, and the presenter was Roy Plumley.
Our castaway this week is a singer, the baritone Thomas Allen. Tom, have you ever imagined yourself as a Robinson Crusoe?
Not until being invited onto this programme. It's something that you hope will never happen to you, I suppose.
How well do you think you could endure loneliness?
Reasonably well. I've had a fair amount of experience of it, although it's for a timed duration, generally, of going away and spending time abroad in small hotel rooms and being on one's own is very much a part of a singer's life, but rather different from sitting all day on a desert island beach under a palm tree.
What would you be happiest to have got away from?
Hard work, probably. I find myself working rather hard these days, so that might be a respite from that.
Did you find it very difficult to choose just 8 discs for isolation?
Yes, I did. I did it in a panic, finally. I thought I was going to give myself lots and lots of time with lots of forethought, and finally I did it very hurriedly. And now I think I've chosen 8 wrong discs, but I hope not.
There's still time.
It's a very difficult problem to do. But one thing I did want to ask before we go any further is, do I have the whole disc to take with me?
Yes,
or just
indeed you do.
Not just the excerpt that we've chosen?
No, you have the whole disc.
That's fine, because then you have a wealth of music in that case on most of these things.
What's the first one you have there?
The first one I've chosen is a piece of an English composer, Parry, and it's the anthem, I Was Glad. This brings back, I suppose, early days of being in church choir and that kind of background that I had. And being English as well, I suppose. There seems nothing more English than the rousing sound of the start of this anthem.
Parry's anthem, I Was Glad, recorded in the chapel of King's College, Cambridge, and conducted by Philip Ledger. You're from the northeast, I believe.
Yes, I am, Durham.
A mining family?
Most of the family, yes. We're all from a mining town called Seaham Harbour, which is near Sunderland. My father actually wasn't a miner. He was about to be, and then a job was offered him elsewhere in the butcher's shop. So he missed that by about 2 days. But most of the rest of the family, and my mother's side particularly, were miners.
A musical family?
My father played a number of instruments, was always keen on music, learned the piano and organ and taught himself 1 or 2 other little instruments. But the rest of them had no formal musical education, although quite a number on both sides of the family had really very respectable singing voices.
You said you were in the church choir. Was there a lot of music too at school?
Yes, there was. The church choir, we did a certain amount within that kind of a community, not to any great level, of accomplishment. Although it did offer me the opportunity of learning the organ when I was about 10, or starting to learn the organ at least. At school, yes, that was where the greatest influence was, I think. It was strong on its school choir and concerts, and that was where I got my first experience of singing as a solo baritone.
And you were in at least 1 school play?
I was in only 1 school play, but only just. I carried a rifle. You have done your research. I carried a rifle as a soldier in The Devil's Disciple, but I had no speaking part.
Oh, bad luck. You sang in a few music festivals. How did you do?
Pretty well. The first one was at Ryton-on-Tyne, or rather Ryton-on-Tyne. That was one of the popular festivals in the northeast. I entered the first time, I think I was about 16, and sang Vulcan's song from Philemon et Baucis, or Philemon and Baucis or something, I think I called it at the time. And I sang this thing, which was designed for a mature singer of at least 50 years of age. I sang this and was highly commended, was runner-up or something against a lot of chaps much older than myself, who was this young kid that stood up to sing. I did quite well, really. And I think the following year I won that class.
What did you want to be? Did it ever enter your mind that you could be a professional singer?
Not then. I just thought it was rather a novelty that I could sing and have that kind of success in a festival, I think, at that time. And then I started to sing in one or two small local concerts around about. But no, initially I wanted to be an architect. I had a fairly artistic leaning and was always very keen on drawing and painting and such like. But early on in my school career I leaned towards science subjects. It was a very science-orientated school. And the view was that I would then go into a university and a medical school when the time came to leave. And right at the last moment, I had a change of heart.
What gave you that change of heart, do you know?
I wish I could tell you. I don't know. Probably success in music competitions, I don't know. I just had a desire to sing and investigated the possibility of doing that and found out it might well be possible.
Let's have your second record.
Chosen probably as a result of my arriving at college. I had never heard of a guy called Mahler until I got there, and then I was confronted in, I think, practically the first term I was at college, the Royal College in London, with the Symphony of 1000, the 8th Symphony, which was a memorable experience. Anyhow, this particular record is the 5th Symphony. I want to hear the Adagietto of the 5th Symphony, and conducted by Bernard Haitink.
The Adagietto from Mahler's 5th Symphony, the Concertgebouw Orchestra conducted by Bernard Haitink. So you came south to London to study at the Royal College. What was your second subject?
Organ. I suppose most students would have taken piano or whatever else they may have studied, but I had studied the organ for quite some time by then and was very, very keen on learning the instrument. I used to spend hours in church practicing the organ, so that was the choice when I got to college.
There was an organ tradition in your family. Your grandfather built one.
Yes, he did, yes. It was a great chapel family on my father's side. And my grandfather spent about 40 years with his bedroom. Well, I mean, it was a toss-up whether he would have a bed or an organ in his bedroom. And he had both in the end. He had a huge bellows-blown instrument. My grandmother used to pump up the bellows, and he would play hymns on this thing. And it was a marvellous piece of work.
It was all handmade?
Handmade. He'd gathered up scraps of wood and bits of paper. He made quite a few of the smaller pipes from just wound, gummed brown paper, and tuned them himself and done various things. It was a.
You like making things, don't you? You're good with your hands.
Reasonably good, yes. Yes, I make model railways and all sorts of things occasionally. I think that's something I would look forward to on an island, maybe just turning my hand to. If you could let me have a chisel or something like that, perhaps.
Well, now you were a lyric baritone. What sort of music did you think at that time suited your voice best?
Anything that Fischer Dieskau sang, I sang.
Did you have any ambition for opera?
No. Initially I did, and that was before I got to college, and then I realised perhaps that was something that was going to come much later in my life, if at all.
Or like school plays, you did take part in one production, I believe, of the opera class.
Yes, and that only in an emergency to help them out.
What was it?
I sang the part of the Count in Arthur Benjamin's Prima Donna. I haven't sung it since.
And I believe that excellent opera producer, Dennis Arundel, had some advice for you.
Yes, he did. Yes.
What did he say?
I can't remember how many performances we did, but I know at the end of it he said, "If you don't take up opera more seriously, you'll be a bloody fool."
Well.
So I don't know, something was remembered from what he said, I think.
Very sound. Your third record?
I have to have some Elgar, and out of all the Elgar, this has to be the representative piece. It's The Dream of Gerontius, and I particularly want to hear Helen Watt singing The Angel's Farewell.
Farewell from Elgar's The Dream of Gerontius. While you were at the Royal College, did you do any odd jobs for pocket money?
Yes, during holidays I used to work with my father in a store in Sunderland. I loathed it. I think that determined me that I would never be able to hold down a 9-to-5 office job or whatever. But I used to do it, and it did provide me with some pocket money.
And then, eventually, you graduated. You were in the Glyndebourne Chorus for a bit.
I went, yes. One of the first things I did when I left college was to go to... I'd met, by that time, James Lockhart, who was recently appointed music director of the Welsh National. He gave me an audition through the proper channels for the company. They offered me the understudy of Figaro in The Marriage of Figaro, and some understudies in their new production of Boris Godunov. The following January, in '69, I sang one performance of Figaro and understudied some others, and sang the role of the Marquis d'Aubigny in Traviata. Mm-hmm. And those were the first real professional engagements.
You were very inexperienced. You hadn't worked with the opera class. I mean, you had to deal with the difficulties like making up.
Yes, I had no idea how to make up. In fact, I remember being in a room and the assistant producer having to come in and rub makeup sticks, grease sticks into my hands and mould them together and put them on my face. I had no idea. I just didn't know one bit of the business. I was learning it right from grassroots.
The whiskers stayed on all right?
At that time, yes.
You were already married at this time?
Yes, I was married in, March of the 1968, whilst I was still a student.
Is your wife a musician?
No, she's not. She's a very good cook and keeps me healthy.
Good. Your fourth record?
Fourth record is a wonderful voice. I just have to hear this voice. It's a recording of the 4 serious songs of Brahms, and I want to hear the third song, O Tod, wie bitter bist du, Alexander Kipnis.
One of the 4 serious songs by Brahms, Alexander Kipnis, with Gerald Moore at the piano. How long were you with the Welsh National Opera?
I spent 3 years there. 3 very lucrative seasons. They were very beneficial to me.
Apart from the Mozart parts, what did you see?
Well, I had my first christening into a Verdi role of any substance. That was Paolo in Simone Boccanegra. And various other things. I had a great grounding in La Bohème there, which has stood me in good stead ever since. What else? Billy Budd, of course. Billy Budd.
Your first Billy Budd?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. I suppose, other than the first Papageno, the Billy Budd was the great thing for me there.
When did you make your debut at the Royal Opera House?
As far as I remember, that was in 1971, in Billy Budd again, singing the part of Donald.
Mm-hmm.
And I think around the same time I sang Patroclus in King Priam as well.
You've sung the title role in Billy Budd many times, haven't you?
Since then I have, yes. It's still, despite everything, it still remains my favourite role. I tried to tot up the number of performances I've given to date, and I think it works out it's something approaching 40 now, which I think isn't bad for a fairly rare opera like Budd.
And for the first time, of course, at Covent Garden, you were singing in the original languages.
That's right, yes. I found that quite a barrier, I have to say. The biggest barrier I do remember was learning the recitative of The Marriage of Figaro for Glyndebourne in 1974. Mozart recitative, and recitative in general in the original language, had been beyond me, it seemed, previous to that. But I learnt from example and from just sheer hard work that it was just a question of getting down to it and learning it.
Mm.
Of course, the lack of any knowledge of the Italian language didn't help either, but I've overcome that in subsequent years, I think.
You were under contract at Covent Garden for what, 6 years?
5, I think.
You've been careful as far as possible to absorb roles gradually. You've built your career carefully.
Well, I don't know whether I have. I think that's just the way it's happened. But I've always taken a fairly careful approach, a wary approach to overdevelopment too soon.
Mm.
I could have allowed myself to be ruined totally by now if some of the offers that had been made to me I'd accepted some years ago.
Yeah.
But I've treaded fairly warily, and I think it's proved worthwhile.
Record number 5.
Beethoven has to be with me, and as a small token of representation for him, I've chosen the Triple Concerto with a formidable lineup of Oistrakh, Rostropovich, Richter, and conducted by Karajan.
An extract from the Beethoven Triple Concerto with Oistrakh, Rostropovich, Richter, and Herbert von Karajan conducting the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. Now, Tom, you left Covent Garden in 1978 in search of other fields to conquer, but you rejoined the company the following year for that celebrated Far East tour. Where did you go?
Oh, we went to Seoul, South Korea, and then on after, I think we were there for about 10 days, something like that, and then on to Tokyo and Osaka in Japan. Mm-hmm. And it was absolutely memorable.
And the reception?
Tremendous. Particularly the Koreans. I loved being in Korea. They were such wonderful people. My heart bleeds for them now and for what's happened since. I have so many memories of it. They were so kind to us. Dr. Kim, the proprietor of the newspaper out there that sponsored the Korean end of the journey, saw that we were looked after so well. The young people that met us before and after the performances at the stage door of the cultural centre were so enthusiastic and so keen to meet us and give us little presents. It was one of those great memorable occasions.
Which operas did you give them?
There were 3 operas concerned in the trip, as far as I remember. Peter Grimes, Magic Flute, and Tosca. Mm-hmm. And I was there principally for Papageno in the Magic Flute.
And the audiences had done some work before.
They had. I was led to believe, I think we've all been led to believe, that Japan has made great strides into Western music. I think they weren't quite prepared for the Peter Grimes. It came as a bit of a surprise to them. Yes. But I've no doubt by now they're probably churning out their own versions.
Yes, I can see that. Oh, some other highlights. For whom did you sing Eugene Onegin?
For Welsh National Opera.
Yes.
That was a wonderful production by the Romanian Andrei Sherban. It's the only place I've actually sung on Jagen so far.
And some other roles that you've especially enjoyed?
Oh, I've been very lucky. I am very lucky. I make it sound as though I've left it all behind me. Peleas in Peleas et Melisande, the Billy Budd, of course. Don Giovanni is very memorable and very strong in the memory now from Glyndebourne. In fact, it won't go away. It haunts me all the time. I'm forgetting so many. The Count with Carl Böhm at Covent Garden some few years ago, which was a great occasion. And then last year, my debut at the Met with the old production of the Magic Flute singing Papageno. That was, again, something that I shan't forget in a hurry.
And now War and Peace.
In Prokofiev's opera, yes. Some years ago, I heard and saw this production of Colin Graham's at the Colosseum, and was absolutely bowled over by it. And I feel very privileged that it's being revived now, and that I'm actually fortunate enough to take part in it.
And at the Colosseum, you don't have to learn it in Russian.
Indeed.
Any strange or hilarious occasions you remember?
There are two moments that do always stick in my mind when I think of strange happenings on stage. I remember in a performance of Faust at Covent Garden a few years ago now, we had a chap singing the part of Mephistopheles who was a little eccentric. And during the chorus in which we all hold up our swords and he suffers under the signs of these crosses all arranged around him, this particular guy crawled downstage and overhung the apron of the stage on this particular occasion, hanging over the prompt box. And just as a daft thing to say, one of the cast said, "You ought to try going into the prompt box instead one night." And the following performance, I actually saw for the first time a singer crawl into the prompt box from the stage, head first. There was a prompter in there who closed his book, put out the light, and this man disappeared up to about his, below the waist somewhere. All I saw were a pair of feet, finally, and he had to extricate himself and then continue the performance. Quite why he did it, I don't know. It was very disturbing. I mean, it changed the whole focus of what was going on stage.
Is he coming back, you asked yourself?
Actually, the worst incident that or rather one of the more frightening things that I've done was being late for a cue on stage and having to run. This was at Glyndebourne a few years ago. Having to run from the dressing room to the wings and straight on stage to sing a recitative, and the harpsichordist is going up and down scales and playing Scarlatti concertos by this time, you know. And then getting there and thinking, oh my God, I've made a mistake, I'm not supposed to be on at all, you know. That did happen once, and that's frightening.
Very terrifying,
yes.
I think. Another record.
I'm fascinated by the quality of the human voice at any time, and this particular human voice and this particular person. Laurence Olivier means rather a lot, and it's old hat, I know, and rather hackneyed, but I want to hear a section of Henry V, and particularly the Crispian speech.
This day is called the Feast of Crispian. He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named, and rouse him at the name of Crispian. He that shall live this day and see old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispian. Then will he strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, these wounds I had on Crispin's day.
Laurence Olivier as Henry V. We've been talking mainly about, in fact, entirely about the operatic side of your career. How about the concert platform? Do you think that's equally important?
It's very difficult to say that it's equally important, because the very nature of opera is a time-consuming business. You have to be in a place for 3-4 weeks rehearsing, and then for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, giving those performances that you've been working towards. And so it does eat up an awful lot of time. And I do love being on stage, and so you just have to accept that that is the condition by which you work. But I think I've overdone it, really, in past years, to the detriment of my concert career, and I do enjoy giving concerts very much, and we're in the process of putting that to right now.
You're spending quite a lot of time these days recording.
Yes, a fair amount. I quite enjoy recording, although I don't listen to myself when I've done it. I can't stand that.
Uh-huh.
But it's a difficult medium, I find, and not always one that has everything to do with our everyday work on stage or on a concert platform. I think sometimes it's too far removed from it, the technicalities of recording. But it's an important thing, and it's a privilege to be asked, of course, naturally.
Let's get back to music. Well, we're talking about music. Let's get back to hearing it. What's record number 7?
A little while back, I recorded 2 pieces of Delius with Eric Fenby as part of the Fenby legacy, pieces that Fenby had been associated with at the end of Delius's life. I don't want to hear those, thank you, but I would like to hear an old recording of Barbarolli's of the Walk to the Paradise Garden.
Part of The Walk to the Paradise Garden by Delius, Sir John Barbirolli conducting the London Symphony Orchestra. Are you an outdoor man, Tom? Manage on this island? Were you a Boy Scout?
No, I wasn't. I went to the Cub Hut, or whatever it was called, one evening, I remember, and I was ignored.
Oh, no.
Yes, they ignored me, and I never went back. No, the nearest I got to that was the Church Lads Brigade, which is why I was a soldier in the Devil's Disciple, because I was able to march. And I played the big drum in the Church Lads Brigade.
Yeah.
But I am an outdoor person, I think, yes.
You could look after yourself fairly well. You could fend for yourself.
I think probably I could, yes.
Ever done any fishing?
Yes, I've done a little fishing.
That's useful.
That wouldn't bother me.
Can you cook?
Yes, I have to be able to cook to a certain extent when I'm away, so I could do something. I could always eat raw fish, of course. I've been to Japan.
And brought up on the coast, so you should know a bit about boats.
I love looking at boats, and I have a boat.
What sort of boat?
I've got a sort of 13-foot dinghy, an Enterprise, which is lovely. I don't spend very much time in it. And
Where do you sail it?
Well, in ponds mainly, or wherever I can put it in the water. But having said that, I'm very lazy, and I've not taken any instruction. I sail purely by the seat of my pants, and it's sometimes a bit hair-raising, but I enjoy it. I do love boats. I mean, I really would like to have a very nice boat one day.
So you might take a chance and try to escape?
No chance, no. No, I might go around the island and back, but that's about it.
Right.
I bought a book on navigational exercises years ago, but I haven't actually opened it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I'll look at that before the time comes.
I should. Your last record?
I have to have some Mozart, I suppose. Why do I say I suppose? He's everywhere in my life, is Mozart, and it's a very important part of it. But I don't want to hear any singing. I just want to hear Jack Brymer playing the clarinet concerto under Beecham.
Closing passage of the Mozart Clarinet Concerto in A major, Jack Brymer with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra conducted by Sir Thomas Beecham. If you could take only one disc of the 8 you've played us, which would it be?
Beethoven.
The Beethoven Triple Concerto.
Yes.
And you're allowed to take one luxury to the island, one object of no practical use.
Could I have a bag of golf clubs?
Yes, of course.
And some balls?
Yes.
And then if nothing else, I mean, if I was there a long time, I thought I could hack down a few trees and make a small course. And the way the golf business is developing now, I could probably become a millionaire on that little island in a few years.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
You never know.
Right, yeah. Well,
And I could practice with my wedge on the beach and things like that.
we'll sign you up for television when you get back. And one book apart from the Bible and Shakespeare, which are provided for every castaway.
They're wonderful to have. I'd be very happy to have those. And the other thing, this just goes to show how English-bound I am, is Charlotte Bronte, Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And thank you, Thomas Allen, for letting us hear your Desert Island Disc.
It's a great pleasure. I think I've chosen 8 entirely wrong records.
Well, I'm afraid it's too late to change your mind on this occasion.
Oh, well.
Goodbye, everyone.
You've been listening to a podcast from the Desert Island Discs archive. For more podcasts, please visit bbc.co.uk/Radio4.